Hi guys, it's Alyssa from Alyssa's Bake Shop, and today it's all about spring sugar cookies. I'm going to show you how I made them, and I'm going to post the cookie cutters below. So I just wanted to show you guys the colors that I decided to go with. At first I thought maybe pastel, but then I thought, you know what, I kind of like some bright colors because spring is bright and cheery, and I thought, why not? And also making all of the colors and mixing the royal icing with the food dyes, probably my least favorite part about making sugar cookies. Let me know if you agree. So what I started with was the sun and the rain cloud, and I just started by outlining and then filling in the cookie with some medium consistency piping icing. Then with my scribe tool, I'm just sort of pushing in and dragging up to make those points. I always recommend a scribe tool. A toothpick does work in a pinch. Next, I decided that I wanted to outline the cookie. I think sometimes when you outline the cookie, you just add to its overall appearance. It makes it look very clean and sharp without adding too much detail. So what I'm doing is I cut a tipless piping bag, and I made sure to cut the hole small enough so that we were going to have some really thin and delicate lines. That's definitely going to help you out instead of thicker lines that might start flooding all over the place. I let the sun dry for about 10 minutes before I piped on the cloud. You're probably going to hear me say this over and over in this video and just on my channel, and I apologize for that, but it really is important for those who don't know. The best way to make your cookies look great is to let the layers dry in between. It'll just help everything look a lot more crisp and clean, and to avoid color bleeding as well. So I just piped on some raindrops. I used my scribe tool to make them pointy. I wanted to pipe on some little faces, and I wanted their cheeks to have a nice rosy glow, so I'm using some powdered food dye to really lightly brush on to have it look like their little cheeks. And now I just want to say also, you have to be very light-handed when you brush on powdered food dye, especially if the cookies are still drying, because you can definitely crack the surface very easily. For our second design, I went with a rain jacket, and I thought that this was just so adorable. I had never made a rain jacket before, and I decided to stick with that typical yellow color because I felt just in case it didn't come out recognizable, maybe because it would be that yellow rain jacket that's very popular, that people would still understand what they were looking at. After filling in the outline and just smoothing it down with the scribe tool, I tried a different technique I've never done before, and that was to use my scribe tool to run down the center of a partially dried cookie in order to make it look like there were two halves of the jacket. You can see that it disrupted the top of the cookie, and it does have some texture. I knew that was probably going to happen because when cookies start to dry, the first layer, the top layer, starts to form a crust, and whenever you disrupt that, it definitely leaves it looking cracked and not too great. So in order to mask that, I thought, you know what, I'm going to just add some lines over it just to add some detail to try to cover it up and make it look like it was on purpose. I added a little cuff to each sleeve, and then I also outlined the hearts, and I put a little line over the heart so it looked like it was a little pocket. And then it came to adding the buttons, which was so much fun. I love doing all these little details. So what I did was I took some icing and I just made that drawstring, and then I also used this to make the clasps for each of the buttons. And if you were looking at this and you didn't know that I had used a scribe tool to cut down the center, I don't think anyone would have really noticed that texture. The next cookie design I did was some rainbows, and I actually did some rainbows with varying colors. So I wanted the rainbows to look a little bit different. I didn't want to have it all just together with flood icing. I wanted to actually separate the colors out and kind of make it like a minimalistic look, and that's what I was doing here. I tried to mix and match just some different colors in order to keep it interesting. This part was actually a lot of fun. I love using icing when it's a bit puffy, and it's just really nice and easy to make those very simple lines. For my royal icing recipe, I just use powdered sugar and I use egg whites. That's it. I don't add any meringue powder, I don't add salt, I don't add vanilla. So my advice for getting puffy icing, if you're going to be using egg whites, is to let the icing whip for 1 to 2 extra minutes and to add a little bit of water. But you definitely don't want to overmix it, and you don't want to add too much water because then it'll just be too wet. And if you overmix it, sometimes when it dries, it'll actually crack. So it's just about practicing until you can get the right look. I wasn't going to even add any clouds, but I decided to use some of the stiff consistency icing that I had, and I just piped on some dots and made it, again, very minimalistic, and I do like how it turned out. For the umbrella, I knew that I wanted to try a couple different techniques, and I wanted to make it very cute and just very girly. And it's kind of funny because in my real life, I'm very opposite of that, but one way to express that girliness has always been through my baking and desserts. So I'm doing the wet on wet technique, which is basically you just pipe wet icing onto wet icing and then you can manipulate it. So I'm taking my scribe tool and I'm just running it through the dots, just straight down, and I'm wiping it off in between each time, because if you don't wipe it off, you can carry some of the red color into other parts that you don't want. And in this way, this is how we can make some cute little hearts. After that was a little dry, I piped on the umbrella handle and then a heart, and then I moved on to something that I was really hoping would turn out good. So I took the stiff consistency icing and I used a leaf tip, and I just started to pipe some ruffles so it looked like our umbrella had some ruffles on it. I really like how this turned out. It was just something that I've been trying to do more, is to use that leaf tip in my sugar cookies. Now for the final design, I had to do some flowers because flowers are just such a big part of spring. It's what I look forward to the most. Now, I didn't really know what I was doing at first because I don't like when flower designs are just flat. I like things that are a little more 3D, and looking at these cookies compared to the other ones that I showed you, I feel like these were just not as impressive as the other designs. But when you have these cookies in your set, it definitely helps to round it out and just complement the other cookies. So I know that I had to do some kind of design that would still help everything to just look good and tie together. I did the technique where you just let the layers dry in between. That way it's not just one flat royal icing look, but we have some 3D texture going on. And even though it was very simplistic and, like I said, not as exciting as the other ones, I really thought that it was still cute. I added a little center, and with that, all of the cookies were complete. I was really happy with how these turned out. I did designs that I had never done before. So overall, this was just such a fun way to welcome the springtime that is to come, and I just love everything about it. Thanks guys for watching. I'll see you next time.